Okay, folks, let's get started with our 226th coffee chat. So nobody's going to ask me where I got that number from, but it just took 9 years at twice 25 a year, and now today, so that's plus one. Anyway, we have welcome and thanks for joining us up here. I'd just like to first of all thank all of you who were at the AGM there a couple of weeks ago on 31st of October. We had a pretty good turnout, just shy of 40. Is an official count that I saw anyway at one point, which is great for us. And there was lots of great energy and ideas flowing and so on. I'd like to say quickly too that those of you that sort of responded to the putting out for calls for anyone interested and so on to contact the club, there have been some of you. Please be patient. We're working on getting to you all and it will happen over time. I've been working for Elections BC. That's done now. So I'll have more time, and some of the others are working through various agenda items that we've been going on this time of year. So we're looking forward to an interesting meeting today. We've got ourselves just a couple of things. Santa's Light Up, there's an event happening, and Heather, I believe Donna Wendy's going to help update us on that. The City of Victoria invited us to come to the Broad Street Charger ribbon cutting. I think Gary is going to give us a little update on how that's going. And then, of course, we have flown in for very little expense due to the magic of modern technology, James Locke, who, well, we like to call him our own, but we'll see how it goes with the Tesla Owners Club of LA and how, you know, we might have a little bit of a battle going there with them at one point. But James is going to give us a little insight into what he's been up to with his car, which has been really exciting. I'll leave the rest to him. So right up the top then, perhaps Heather, you could let us know what's up with the Santa's Light Up event.
If
You're muted, Heather. Heather, you're muted.
Okay.
Yep.
Donna's going to give us a little update. She's been doing some planning for us today and the last couple of days since I hit her up for some help, and she's come up with some good ideas, and I'm hoping that everyone in the club will be able to participate in some manner, whether it's donations or coming to help with our little drive we're planning. So give a hand to Donna for taking on this at the last minute for us. And Donna, over to you.
Okay, hi there. Yeah, I wrote up a little blurb here, but the Victoria Festival Society has got some ideas and asked us to join, and it's called Light Up the City campaign. So I'll read it off my phone here. But we're wondering who could be available to bring their beautifully decorated cars to drop off some donations, such as unwrapped toys or cash or cans of food items or unperishable food. So, but we could have a drive ahead of time to collect the things, and 5 of the cars who want to decorate the cars could show up at the event and give us some good PR and get people interested. So, the idea is that there's several choices to go, but I picked the one that was December 6th because it's in the Esquimalt, and it seemed to be sort of central, but you know, we can put up other possibilities to donate, but we could have a drive. That's a Sunday morning. And so we could have a drive perhaps out to Machosen, or that's sort of what I'm thinking of, or Souk or Surely Delicious, something like that. So the details are not quite solidified yet. So December 6th, it'd be at Archie Browning parking lot for the drop off between 1:30 and 4. So we stay an hour there. For the 5 cars that want to decorate and be there. But beforehand, we could start maybe 11:30 or 11 and drive around for a couple hours just for fun. So, and then there's another option besides that one, is to be in a video, and they are planning, Victoria Festival Society, for Light Up the City for November 17th, 23rd, or 24th to be in a video. So I have emailed them and they have not responded yet. So I'll let you know, and then we can post it maybe on Facebook or the website when we know more. So yeah. That's
Thanks,
basically-
Donna. So everybody, if you all grab at least 2 or 3 friends and tell them to get some great non-perishables and 1 or 2 toys each, then collect them, and then we can all gather together and fill our frunks full.
Mhm.
Just to clarify, are we driving around to collect at various points, or they're
Well,
meeting
I
us in the
think-
park, bringing their stuff to the parking lot, and we're delivering it to the wherever?
I think what I understand is that they want 4 or 5 cars to be decorated to be at the venue. So
Yeah.
I was thinking if we had a drive first or leading up to
Yeah.
that, we have a few weeks to collect some things. And so if we designate, I can be one of the volunteers to do that. And if we have a few more that want to do that for that day, for December 6th. Now, if that isn't a day that works out well, we haven't committed to that yet. I just thought it seemed to give us enough time. So, yeah.
It looks good to me. I have a frame in the garage with our sign on it for the car club. It's an older thing, but it works with lights on it and so on. That sits on a roof rack, which goes on my leaf, which we've been using for years. I think Fred bought that and built it and set it up. So I could be there with that, and some other lights and decoration.
Yeah.
And the 6th sounds good to me. Anybody else? Suggestions? Ideas to add to that?
Our firefighters in Souk do that. They come
Yeah.
around with several trucks.
But
And they
not
do the
closer to
whole,
Christmas though.
yeah, and they do the whole town and then drop it off at the fire station, sort through it, and I don't know where it goes from there, but out to people.
And it's a possibility that we could do another one, but they haven't decided whether they'll, someone out at Royal Oak. There's one going to be out at North Saanich area. Maybe one in Oak Bay. So yeah, so we'll see if we want to do 2 of them, perhaps.
Yeah. Nice idea.
Yeah.
Very
Okay,
good.
thanks, Donna.
So we're going to hear more from that. I keep your eye on the newsletter, I guess. Hey, Jim?
Yep.
I'll be publishing more information that way. Very good. Well, that's looks like a fun thing to do. Fingers crossed for the weather, of course, but that's par for the course this time of year, right? Glenn, you're going to give us a little rundown on chargers downtown there, see what's up.
Yeah, that's right. So the city of Victoria, they're moving ahead on a number of different fronts with trying to make Victoria a more EV friendly city. And part of that is putting in level 2 chargers down on the street for street side charging. Tuesday the 17th between 12:30 and 1:30. They'd like to have some EVs parked down there charging up. The charging is free, the parking isn't. But what they'd like to do is have those chargers full up and then have a representation there from the EV Association. I presume El Presidente and Vice Presidente will be there. But there are 6 chargers. We'd like to fill them up, and I'd like to know if there's anybody with a Kona, an e-Niro, a Leaf, a Soul, and an I-Pace who wants to come out. So if you want to come, put your name into the chat, and then Jim will capture that and contact you to confirm it. But yeah, we'd like to have, we have Teslas up the yin yang, so no problem there. We'd like to have a Leaf, an e-Niro, a Kona, a Soul, and an I-Pace would be kind of nice if there's any still running around. And yeah, if you want to come out and do that and watch the City of Victoria unveil these things officially, let us know. Thanks.
Dave, you got to unmute yourself. Dave,
We
unmute.
might put some pressure on a few people to come out with their cars if we don't get the variety that we're looking for. But, you know, we don't get too heavy-handed. We'll see about that. I've got a little comment here from Eric. There are some people on the call from out of town and over on the big land. And welcome to you all, you folks. What was it? Malcolm's from the interior, Kelowna. Is that right, Malcolm? Welcome.
Yeah, I am. I'm in West Kelowna. I am indeed.
Great. Well, good to see you.
Thank you.
And Bruce Stout's here from Deep Cove. So we have an unusual guest. He's very familiar to a lot of you, I know that. And James has been very generous with his time today to come up all the way from Santa Clarita, where he's living, California. You probably all know that too, but he's been doing some neat things with his car. So James, why don't you tell us all about it?
Sure, thanks, Dave. So yeah, as most of you are probably aware, I was selected for the beta FSD trial, and in this unique situation, Tesla was so kind to allow, I believe there's approximately 19 of us right now, to share our experience in social media. As most of you know, it's, or maybe you don't, usually when you're in the beta program, you're under a really strict NDA that has zero tolerance, and Tesla, through the Owners Club program, has basically approved us to share our experiences on social media. So I got the update in late October, the first revision, and immediately was blown away by the capabilities of this beta software. It's not meant to be a fully autonomous software suite yet. It's a beta, full self-driving, the new software stack that Elon's been talking about on Twitter. And it's an impressive improvement to the capabilities of the car. So basically some general comments I have for everyone, and then I'll just go to questions because I'm sure there's just lots of people with questions. They changed the user interface really quickly. There's a whole bunch of videos online about that. They've updated the way the car sees everything around the vehicle and how it represents that to the driver, so we can get comfortable with what the car is seeing and its anticipated path in reality. And they just tweaked it again last night. They made a bunch of improvements based on our feedback to them about some of the icon positions, sizes of the icons for visibility, and the general layout of the user interface. And there's some videos on that. So I have a YouTube channel for anyone interested in seeing what I'm seeing and sharing. Just look for James Locke on YouTube. You won't miss me on there. And I'm always looking for ideas and feedback for what people want to put the car through. I do have some curvy mountain roads in the area I want to go try out eventually and kind of show to those in Canada what it's like, especially for those on the island that do the Souk Road or any of those Malahat and everything like that to show what it would be like. But I also know Beta FSD will be coming to Canada soon. I don't have any information to share. I don't get told anything like that, but based on the patterns I'm seeing, I think we're going to see further beta rollout to here in the United States across all the states in the coming days, if not hours, knowing Tesla. And then once they're comfortable with everything here, they'll start. The next priority is Canada, and I believe somewhere in Northern Europe to get into the snowy climate. So if people want to start asking questions, we can, and I can kind of take it from there. If anyone has any questions for me. Go ahead, Heather. You're muted, Heather. Yeah.
James, does that user interface automatically change the size going from the driver visibility to the map and back again and to the rear cameras?
Yeah, so that is the update that came in last night. Previously, so the original user interface, it actually grew the visualization and shrunk the map slightly. But now it completely changes based on how autopilot is engaged. If you're driving manually, it's the old way. It's a shrunk, bigger map. The second you turn on autopilot, it grows the visualization and shrinks the map a lot, which makes sense because the car's driving, right? So you don't really need to know the direct path because you picked it and confirmed it before you engaged it. So, and then if you flick on the rear camera, it changes it so the cameras are in better view and better visibility. So it's actually quite nice how it handles that.
Change the view.
James, I have a question about animals. I live on
Yes.
Salt Spring. We have a lot of deer. And in fact, my wife and I almost hit one in Oak Bay a couple of days ago, jumping in between cars. Are they writing in software recognition and auto stop for that?
They must be. Based on some of the patterns I'm seeing, obstacle avoidance, it's detecting very small obstacles on the road and drawing them and going around those obstacles. So something as big as a deer. I haven't had the situation. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles. I mean, seeing any kind of large animal is rare, short of a dog, but they're usually on leashes. So I haven't had a situation where an animal's popped out yet. And I'm not really eager to go seek that out and test it myself, so to speak. So I think as more beta testers that are approved to share are out there, we're going to start seeing those stories come out and shared with the public. But they have to. I mean, based on like just the situation, I shared a link. It's the first one in the chat there with just 2 bicyclists on the road and how it dealt with that. I mean, obviously they're not darting across the road like a deer would or anything like that. I think with the cameras now being a full 360 view, I have seen, for example, autopilot react to a human. So I had a person on a sidewalk and I was going down a main artery road and that person turned like they might enter the street and my car immediately slowed down for the anticipation of someone possibly stepping out in front of me. So it anticipated a possible human walking out in front of me. So one would theorize that for a large animal, it would do the same. Another example on like one thing that obviously anyone has FSD now and its capabilities on residential streets with no lane markings and lots of parked cars on either side of the road. The car naturally slows down, anticipating someone might walk out between the cars. So you could have it set to like 50, but the car will slow down for the situation in anticipation of variables it can't quite see. And I'm detecting that. The busier the parked cars, the slower it gets automatically for possible obstacle avoidance.
But could I just interject quick here, James, just for those that might not know, if they go to the chat button on this Zoom call, that YouTube video is available. You just click it and you'll get to watch it.
Yeah.
And you'll still be on the call.
Yeah.
If you want to come back to the call, look for the Zoom green light or some such on your screen. There,
Yeah,
that was, sorry, James, I just wanted to clarify so people, because that's a really interesting video, because you haven't interceded there at all, have you?
No, there was no user intervention with the accelerator, with anything in that situation. I was watching closely. If you watch the video, I had a speeder whip up the left trying to beat everybody. And then a second car started to pass and the car waited, and then that person decided to yield. So then the car went around the bikers. It did a beautiful pass detecting the construction cones. And then if you keep watching the video, the car knows the speed limit's 50. It's set to 55 because I have it set for 5 miles an hour over the posted limit, but it didn't do more than 35. And it actually slowed down when it saw humans working in the construction zone, anticipation of any possible people walking out in front of me. So it's doing very well in being a very safe but efficient transition through construction zones. But I mean, oddly enough, you know, when you're doing any kind of trip, you can't avoid construction. But when you're trying to find unique situations to test it, you can't find construction for the whole year, right? So, I mean, I'm trying to find more construction. So when it forces you into oncoming traffic or forces you to do some kind of weird maneuver, and I can't find it in this town for the life of me. But you know, I'll find it somewhere eventually.
We have lots of opportunities up here for you on Souk Road.
Yeah. Another one I get is find potholes. Does it avoid potholes? I can't find a pothole for the life of me now, but I've had so many tires taken out by them. It's like, what?
That's excellent.
Find yourself a dirt road.
Dirt road, that's another one I got to find out here. Now, one thing I found interesting, so as beta FSD, if it's not a mapped area, FSD will not engage. So that I found interesting, but that could just be something to do with the beta and how they're tracking information to make sure they can correlate a GPS coordinate with a map with how the car does. And it might be related to that, because Elon said that these FSD, when it's in full release, full self-driving will be able to handle a situation it's never seen before with no map data and no cell phone coverage. So I suspect that's just something to do with the beta program. So I got to find a dirt road that's mapped and I can navigate to it. because I've noticed when I try to engage FSD beta, and I get a lot of questions about that. What if you just don't have a destination? Well, then why you want a full self-driving? You have to be going somewhere. But if I try to engage it, it will drive for a while and then say, take control. Cause it's like, I don't know where I'm going. I mean, it does go straight. And then one person, I can verify this, you engage FSD beta with no destination, all of a sudden it'd be like, oh, I'm going to turn left here for some reason. Oh, I'm going to turn right here. It does it all safely. And it's not doing anything dangerous, but it's like going to some random destination that you don't know where it's going. I've never been brave enough to just see where it takes me, but.
You just hit the I feel lucky button. Same thing.
Yeah, there you go. Where do you want to go? I feel lucky. Let's see where it takes me. That's right. It's killing me that I can't do road trips because I'm being safe and due to COVID down here in the US, and I'm not doing any unnecessary trips. But trust me, guys, if that border was open, I'd be up there like that out on the island, assuming it's not geo-locked to the US, but geocache locked to the US. But yeah, I'd be up there in a heartbeat.
There was some indication that they were going to put a bird's eye view on a stopped car along with FSD. Has that been done?
Not yet. So I suspect, I wasn't anticipating the user interface change. So I suspect that's something that's going to come and be folded into the program as we go. Like, for example, the other things I've noticed, nav on AP. So when I transition from city streets to a highway, I have the same code that everyone else has for navigating on a highway. It doesn't do anything different. The user interface looks different, but it's the same. I went on a convoy with two friends that don't have the beta in their Model 3s, and my car did the same little weave maneuvers for exits. Not like dangerous, but you know how it weaves sometimes if there's an exit? All three of our cars paced each other. So that was the confirmation that we're all running the same code when we're on highway driving or nav on AP.
So that includes phantom braking too, then I guess.
Phantom braking, I haven't noticed much phantom braking on the highways. With this beta, of course, there's going to be phantom braking because it's anticipating, and it is more cautious. So if there's a car that comes out in an intersection and stops, sometimes it'll slow down. It might cut in front of me. So it's watching that carefully. But with this latest build I just got last night, I'm noticing it's not doing that quite as much. So it's more confident in its ability to predict what that car's going to stop or if it's going to roll through and cut in front of me. So
And you're locked to the speed limit too, correct?
speed limit plus 5 miles an hour here on city streets. Yeah. And then on highways up to 90 miles an hour. I do know that FSD beta seems to be limited. If I have one highway I can go on here. It's kind of like a minor highway that stays on FSD beta, and it maxed out at 65 miles an hour. It wouldn't do more than that, even though the posted speed limit was 65. And if anyone's been in LA, no one's doing 65. So, yeah.
Did you say?
Go ahead.
Did you say, James, that how many people are on this beta testing with you?
From the pattern I've seen online, because some people are tracking, been talking about it, there's 19 approved for social media testing. I guarantee you there's a whole bunch more than that in the background, especially Tesla employees
Right.
that would have it and under strict NDA. So
Probably several hundreds.
oh, I guess they'd have to. I mean, the world is a complex place. They have to get all these educations and get them all figured out. So
Yeah, and you want serious repetitions of similar situations.
Exactly. Some of the things I've noticed, as most of you know, when you go and try situations and you're driving the same route every day, it usually makes the same little nuances or little weaves or something like that. With the beta, the new build, it's kind of like how we drive. Depending on the environment, the speed you're going, other traffic, you change your driving habits based on your environment. That I'm seeing with this beta. Necessarily do the same thing every time at the same spot. It depends on what's there, what's happening, your speed, the weather, the lighting. It's always like 90 times out of 100, it's always doing something in a safe and natural manner. I have to do very few user interventions, but it's interesting to watch how it handles those situations, like a traffic light. And that happens a lot here in LA is red light runners, and the car is actually noticing, anticipating that because it's watching those side cameras. It's seeing someone run the red and waiting to proceed through the green, which is really impressive to see. So it doesn't go blindly. It's actually watching its environment around it, which is really interesting to see.
You're talking about the learning ability from one incident to the next. So when I'm going along and I know there's a corner that's perhaps difficult, like a rising right-hand turn that levels and drops left on the
Yes.
Chosen Road in
I know
particular.
those roads, yeah.
And there's a spot there that's had trouble all along. And what I do is I approach it. I've tried all sorts of things, letting it go as far as possible, and it jerks and corrects, but visibility is poor. So an oncoming car it could be there, and you don't really know until it's almost too late. So I tend to disengage, but I re-engage quickly. So does that not send a signal to the computer or somebody to monitor that, or is that not true? I read that somewhere.
With beta, 100% true. I know, like, one of the things I had to do with beta is approve them tracking me. So tracking my VIN to my name and my position, because I've agreed for that tracking capability. And every single time I disengage, they review why I disengaged. So that, I mean, that's a beta program. They want to know why we're disengaging. For the average user, I don't think quite as much. But like, one of the things you can do is, if there's always I don't know if they're doing it as much, and I would actually wait for this beta, the FSD beta to roll out to all those with full self pre-purchased and hardware 3, is when that rolls out, I think they're going to be looking for a lot more input and tracking those edge cases to get that march of 9s, to get that confidence level in the capability of the system to be trusted. So though, like, and the one thing I've told people, it's two different realities with these, what everyone has now and what this new beta is. It's a whole different way of thinking about how it does things. And it's the same in some respects, but it's different in how it interprets what you do. And I'm definitely, like, I have another video on my channel where I have, typical city spending, a road that goes nowhere, a forced 180-degree turn, paved and beautifully marked. So I actually took my FSD beta and kept trying it. And it was really interesting to watch how it would weave, trying to figure lanes out, and that would get better with each passing turn. And then eventually it took that 180-degree turn without issue, and a nice speed. So that's what I mean by this one will actually interpret things with each pass. I don't know how it's doing it. It's not learning. And I use that term and I get attacked on my videos about it. Of course it's not learning. It's not an artificial intelligence that's learning on the fly. I mean, it's like, it must be marking the road or marking the GPS positions or doing something that it's anticipating what it's going to need at that spot in the future. So I label that learning. It's probably not the best word for it, but it's interpreting reality differently after each path and adjusting for it.
Yeah, well, something's improving, because from month to month, that one S-bed now took 2 repairs over about 4 months, and it's now, I took it the other day, and I didn't need to intervene at all. I was amazed. Yeah. So there's definitely improvements that come periodically, and I just didn't know how they were getting the message.
Yeah, and it could be the disengagement, say, because I know one of the things, as those following along, Tesla and Elon has been mentioning this Dojo computer. So a Dojo computer, this Dojo computer is the nickname for basically a supercomputer custom built to take all this fleet learned data and iterate and improve the neural network based on a mass amount of data. So for example, with my beta FSD, after I do a drive, my car uploads about 4 to 5 gigabytes of data each drive. So that's just me. And I know 19 of us doing that. And then on top of that, there's probably hundreds more. So do the math on how much data is being sent to Tesla just in that small group. Now multiply that by 1 million cars when they release this. So what I don't think a lot of people understand is how quickly they're going to be able to iterate and change and evolve this neural network to reality and what we're experiencing every day in our cars. And like Elon said, it's never going to be like zero risk, like anything in life, nothing's zero risk. It's just getting it to such an infinitesimal small chance that the probability of an accident is better than our own driving standards and skills as the average driver. So it's going to be interesting to see. And just from where I started, if anyone gets invited to the beta FSD, it is completely random. I was selected, I will admit, I think because of my Owners Club experience and all the feedback I've given and my social media presence, they liked that and knew I was going to share the information they want us to impart. Kind of like anything. When you're in a beta program, you share the good with the public. You share what needs to be improved with Tesla and give them a chance to improve it. It's beta. I mean, it's clear about that. And I knew that going into this. So if you get invited to the beta, don't expect it to be relaxing, okay? The way I think of it, I'm teaching my son who's about to start driving in about 1.5 years. That's what I'm doing with this beta software. I'm watching a new driver learn to drive. And that's how this beta is. You're teaching a baby how to drive, and it's doing really good is how I heard someone reference that. I have a baby in my car driving and it's doing really good. Better than most LA drivers, to tell you the truth. You should see the videos I haven't posted with LA drivers. But so it's really impressive what it's doing and what its capabilities are. And where it's going to go is going to be mind-boggling to me. Advancing. Yeah.
Are you feeling yourself get complacent yet?
No, but I'm also mentally telling myself every time I get in the car, don't get complacent. Plus, I don't know if Tesla, because I have a 3 and it's on my 3, that camera on me might be watching me very closely. So they know I'm not getting complacent because, I mean, Tesla's, you are 100% in control of this vehicle. You have to drive the car at all times and be ready to take over. So I'm very much aware of that because I know, I also know if there's an accident that happens, it's my fault. And I accept that because this is a total piece of beta software and I accept that. So I'm making sure I don't get complacent. Now, when it goes to the public, that I can see happening quickly, kind of like what we saw when people were doing silly things with their nav on AP, right? And getting in the right seat or in the back seat of the car and letting it drive and videoing it. So it'll be interesting to see how things change with that as time progresses. But
How do you find the unmarked roads?
really good. So the only issue, I use that term lightly, is it likes to be in the middle of the road, not too far in the middle. Like, I don't mean like down the middle of the road. I mean, favoring that center line a lot. And I think it's because it's anticipating parked cars along the side here. So it's the last update, it actually improved. It's a little more right. It makes me feel a little more comfortable, but on the unmarked roads, it seems to be anticipating. And I'm also noticing as I drive more, it's partially drawing a center line that isn't marked. It's got a yellow line that pops up every as it learns where it thinks middle can be. And I think that's kind of where, when people say, well, how's it going to handle snow? Well, how does it handle an unmarked road? It's just think of a white unmarked road and figuring out the contour of the road and where traffic is in relation to everything. How do we figure out a snow covered unmarked road? So I think
a lot of humans, pretty shitty.
Yeah. Watching some human drivers, I see, I don't know if they know how to drive on a snow covered road, but the other trick will be, and one thing I'm catching myself in when you said about being complacent, our driving habits and what we've learned over our lives, those are when the car is learning to drive. Some things for me, like I'm driving a performance Model 3 for those that don't know. When I'm at a red light and it's safe, I have some fun going off the red light. I do not speed, but I'm up at 50 miles an hour in about, I don't know, 2.9 seconds or so. So when you're in a car and it's driving, it's programmed for efficiency, not, kicking the Mustang on, sitting beside you on a red light. So not that I would do that, that's dangerous and stupid. But the beta is really interesting because, and I watched this, and it's really tough in LA because LA drivers don't slow accelerate. You let it do what it wants to do, and it's driving for the most efficient way to get you to your speed you want to get to, and your watt hours per mile or kilometer reflect that for that commute. And it's really interesting to watch. And I haven't done it yet. Is to do a route with me driving, and I would drive the way I would normally drive safely, and then have FSD do it right after, try to get the same traffic pattern and flows and show that efficiency difference. And I still have to do that because it would be really interesting to see on a short drive what that equates to as power savings in the car. I think it'd be significant, and I've got to test that. There's just not enough hours in a day.
Hey, James, Jerry Delville's been very patiently waiting to ask a question. So.
Oh, please.
Oh, thanks, Glenn. Actually, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to reinforce what James was saying in terms of what he said, learning from my research background when I used to be working. That's the definition of machine learning. So it is learning.
Okay, so that is the proper way to say it's learning?
It's absolutely learning.
Okay, because a lot of people have been saying there's no way the car can be learning on its computational resources, but I think it's just that definition of the word learning that we're confusing between discussions.
Well, it's not discovering something new. It's learning habit and it's adapting. And
Okay.
that's the definition of machine learning.
Okay, perfect.
But
Thank
you're
you.
bang on.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, and it's definitely, by that, what you're saying there, yeah, it's definitely machine learning occurring. And it makes sense, the capabilities of the processing in the car, and based on where Elon said this is going, it has to be able to do that. It has to be able to interpret in real time and adjust without checking in with any mothership or getting told what to do, so.
Yeah, and that's interesting. If you go to the other makers who are trying to use LiDAR, so they're using another sensor out there to look at what's happening, but they're also bouncing that off the GPS maps and stuff instead of making something that can work in an unknown situation first time out, safely.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Exactly.
perfectly, but safely.
Yeah. Very much
So-
so.
So one more thing about those unmarked roads. I've seen some stuff, and I don't know exactly if I'm right on this, but when you're on an unmarked road, cars parked on both sides, and there's not enough space for somebody coming towards you, how does that handle it? And also, if they are coming towards you and there is enough space for both of you to pass each other safely, how does that feel? Not how is that, but how does that feel?
So I've had that situation. So I've had the second situation where you've got parked cars on both sides, and it's tight, but it's manageable to pass each other safely. The car, like you're on high alert because you're in minimal margin of error zone, but the car manages it well. It reduces its speed. I mean, the other guy coming doesn't, but it reduces its speed and it squeezes through that lane really well. I haven't personally seen this, but some of my friends that have the beta as well, sometimes it will actually even fold in the mirrors automatically if it's really close so that they don't get clipped. And they've showed videos of the mirrors folding in for those really tight spaces. If you check out Tesla Owners Club Silicon Valley, John, he did a video on a mountain road that was very narrow. And there was an oncoming car, and the beta actually moved over, slowed down, and the other car passed, and then it resumed its path. So it was able to adjust to a narrow mountain road. No, obviously no cars parked on either side, but the same kind of situation. Actually today, I was doing a test drive. I have the video, I haven't uploaded it yet, but I had a car in my lane with parked cars on either side and an oncoming lane, and the four-way flashers in my lane. It wouldn't go around that car because I don't know if Beta FSD is recognizing those four-way flashers and that it's an obstacle that needs to be carefully routed around it. And I didn't give it time because I had 4 cars behind me and they were itching to get around this car. So I didn't want to present a situation that was dangerous. But it would have been interesting, and maybe I'll try this, is get Lisa to go out in a car, put it on a road where there's no traffic, and see when eventually if the car will route itself around that disabled vehicle in my lane. That would be interesting to see how it does as well.
So when you're in that situation where you got 2 cars, one car coming the opposite direction, did you feel like it was going towards that other car more than the parked cars, or is it kind of in the middle?
No, it was going down the middle. Sometimes situations with this Beta FSD where it's an unmarked road with no cars and it's running down the more middle than I would be comfortable with myself because I can see there's no parked cars further up. It kind of hugs that lane and takes dominance on its lane, and the other car is as well. And my tendency would be to just move over because why pass close? So, I mean, that's made me disengage and just move over for the abundance of caution kind of idea. And it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. And it uses the lane it has available to keep the maximum distance between itself and oncoming traffic in unmarked lanes. So that'll be interesting to see as revisions come out, how that adjusts.
James, it would be interesting if it could detect if somebody on your side, one of the parked cars is opening their passenger or their driver's door in front of you, which is illegal, not a good idea. But if the Tesla detected it, that would be fantastic.
It does. That I've seen personally. So I had a person open my door going down a city street. Actually, both doors opened, and the car, it didn't recognize it on the display, but then 2 human icons popped up and the car went around that vehicle. Now, I didn't have an oncoming car, so I didn't have the situation where you have that with an oncoming car and trying to go forward. It was free oncoming, and it just weaved into the oncoming lane and gave those humans a wide berth for those doors. And anytime I've had a situation where there's a human near a car, like in our residential neighborhood, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a lot of people are getting gardening and yards done, and there's a lot of those cars around. If there's people wandering their cars and getting out or picking something out of a pickup truck, the car always gives a wider berth when it sees a human next to a car, assuming they're going to walk out to get in their vehicle or something like that. So it is doing that already. Yeah. No, I've been very impressed with that. Yeah. Some other situations I can talk about. What else is it doing that you guys would know? The one thing I'm getting used to is things it's doing that most people won't know about that's interesting, but has become, you don't think about, like you don't give a second thought to as you're driving your car. Multiple left turn lanes. It's improved from the first build massively. Here in California, we can have 2 or 3 left turn lanes at a controlled intersection. And the car is learning to handle and pick the right lane based on its navigation. At first, it would always get in the far left lane. Even if you had 3 left turn lanes and you're making an immediate right, it would get in the far left and then be stuck trying to get over 2 other lanes. It's now getting better at picking the proper turn lane and then navigating that more complex, large intersection. It's still doing a bunch of learning with like complex light situations. But it's learning and they're adapting on those quickly. Those are those edge cases they have to work out, especially when the camera can see. If you have, here's an old situation. So we have an intersection where there's a left turn lane that is everywhere in California, you have controlled intersections with lights. And there's a left turn light that was over the left lane going straight through the intersection. And it used to confuse autopilot if that was red, but the green for straight were forward. It would kind of think that that light above its lane was for it. And after one revision, they fixed that. And now it ignores that light and understands that it's a left turn light. It's building a ton of confidence on lane change, like turns. First few revisions, when I came up to a green light and you can make the immediate right turn, it would kind of hesitate and slowly take the turn. Now it's because it knows it has the right of way. Things like that are really interesting to watch as the system learns and gets more data on what it can handle and what it can't, to see how that handles situations fluidly.
Heather, you got to.
Yeah, and James, have you had any experience with U-turns?
It avoids U-turns.
Okay.
I did a test. A lot of times here when you do navigation, it's like, when safely, make a U-turn. It does not do that anymore on this FSD beta. It'll actually go left and then up and then right and do a proper reroute.
Okay.
So I've been trying to force it.
Yeah, because Palm Springs is notorious for U-turns.
Here too.
And I'm sure there too, yeah.
Yeah, California, basically every turn is a U-turn unless marked.
Yeah, if there's 2 lanes, there's a U-turn.
Yes, there's always a U-turn on the inner. I'll keep trying, excuse me. I haven't tried it with this revision. I'd be curious to see if I can get it to force it. When I do manually do a U-turn, the way the UI shows, it shows the path prediction. And as soon as I start turning the wheel tight, it knows I'm doing a U-turn. So I think what they're doing is they're just gathering U-turn data before they allow it. If you want, I don't know, I don't think I uploaded this one. I probably didn't, but my 180-degree turn test, I'm surprised no people are asking about it, but the inside lane.
I watched it.
Yeah, but it will not do that inside lane. Lisa and I went out one night and tried 8 times to try to get it to take that. I mean, I slowed it down to 1 mile an hour to see if it was just speed, and it still wouldn't take that tight turn. But if I drove it by hand, the second I started to take the turn, it snapped to the path prediction. So my guess is it's that machine learning, and they're just trying to gather data, because that's a tricky situation. And if you're at a light here in California, if you're at a light and you've got people turning right on the other lane, and then you're doing a U-turn, it's got to watch a lot of variables there to make sure it doesn't have an accident. So I'm sure that's just training data.
What about roundabouts, James?
Roundabouts, it does pretty good. It actually, it's cautious, so it always stops instead of yields. So if it's empty, it should just flow right into the lane. Lately, it's been stopping, checking, and going, even if there's a guy right on your butt. But that, I'm sure, again, is just abundance of safety on the software side. It does really good in the U-turn, but it takes it very slow. If it's a bigger U-turn, it does go a little faster, but if it's one of those tight U-turns, it does take it slow. I've had it take every exit successfully. It always knows which exit to take. I did a big six exit U-turn, and it knew how to take the 5th exit really well. It does some hunting in the U-turn as it's going around because they're not marked. I did do 2 U-turns in a row that were 2 lanes of traffic with really poor markings, and it did rather well on those as well. But again, with traffic flow coming off an interstate, people aren't looking to slow down as they hit that that roundabout. If there's an opening, they want to go. So I've had to encourage it to be more free flowing with the traffic flow, so it doesn't stop, wait for the perfect entry, and then go. So I mean, that abundance of caution, you got to really watch and make sure that you're not being tailgated. I've never allowed it to try to see, like someone asked me, what if someone's on your like right on your butt and a light goes yellow and you really do have distance to stop? Will it stop knowing there's a car right behind you? I haven't had that situation. I don't know. I'd assume because it's watching 360 degrees, it should take that into the equation of safety. But I haven't witnessed that personally myself.
James, how easy is it to intervene and then get back to FSD?
Super easy. Like your car, you turn the wheel, you tug the wheel, tap the brake, anything disengages it, or disengage on the control stalk. No way is it difficult to disengage. In fact, sometimes, because I've always got my hand on the wheel, I try to be a light grip, so I'm there to grab control on a turn just in case. And I give just even the slightest tug, it disengages FSD, and I have to drive and then.
Oh, so you disengage and then you have to re-engage.
Re-engage it, yeah. So it's just like your car. So if I turn the wheel, it disables the steering, but the speed is still controlled by the FSD beta. And that's actually interesting. If you hand drive the wheel, but allow it to control the speed, it will actually slow in anticipation of an upcoming turn. So it doesn't just keep doing 50. If it knows you're about to make a left, it actually slows, anticipating you're going to take the left turn. So it's doing that speed control like it is if it was driving as well.
I've seen with that ding, like on the current build, you get a ding when the light changes green or whatever. If I'm using my navigation system and I have a right turn coming up, it actually makes that noise when it knows that I'm supposed to take a right turn on the current build.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if it's all the time, but it does do it quite a lot.
Interesting. I will admit, having it go through green lights without approving is so nice. And it does, I'd say 99.9% of the time, it's doing lights perfectly. Green lights, yellows, reds. It proceeds through a yellow and doesn't hammer on the brakes to come to a stop, or it stops safely if it has time. I mean, it's seeing all the red lights. Sometimes if it doesn't have a visual on the light, so I have a part of a road where I have a curve and there's a bunch of trees on the median that block the light from the car's view, it will actually say there's an approaching intersection and start slowing down, anticipating a red. But the second it sees the green, it accelerates and goes through it. So it's anticipating that possible red. And that's why I don't say it's perfect every time, because it can't see. Even though I can, because I can see through the tree at night that it's green, the car isn't quite seeing that yet. So
yeah, that sounds very similar to what the current build is doing, because it is very good on those greens and reds.
yes.
Especially when you're following another car. It sounds pretty much the same idea, because I think they got that nailed down.
Yeah. The question from Mike Baker there, I don't know. Everywhere that I've seen that I have friends that do the FSD beta, we all have the same jurisdictions. They're going to have to take that into effect. They're going to have to be able to figure out the laws of the road for that location. Because I do know there are states in the US where, yeah, you can't do a right turn on red, or there's a sign that says no right turn on red. Actually, and I know where I can go to try that here in LA. When we did it, my wife works at Jet Propulsion Labs, and there's an intersection where there's a no right turn on red sign, and it's electronic. I should go and try that and see if it'll try to take that red with a lit electronic don't turn on red sign. Because as you guys know, in BC, currently it doesn't see those electronic speed signs, right? It can't see that it's reduced it to 90 or 100 and 110 zone. So it'll be interesting to see if they can teach the system to see those. Well, they have to, because they have to teach those systems to see those signs in Europe too.
Another thing it doesn't see in Vancouver is speed limits in school zones. If it's got the sign of the kids above it, it doesn't see the speed below it.
I haven't verified this yet, but I had an interesting case on a road trip 2 weekends ago where it was a 25 sign that was while children are present, right? And that's kind of a similar idea in BC. It's like going into Souk, you know, the infamous speed, the zone through Cecinos Elementary there, where it says, well, children are present, and people love doing 60 through it. The car actually saw the 25 sign, but ignored it because there was no one on the road. And then I went through another similar speed zone and there was someone walking and it slowed down to the 25. I haven't done enough testing to see if it's actually understanding that sign. But it'll be interesting to see if it can, because I still have the other error with my nav on AP, which is just like everyone else's, where you pass a 65 sign and then a 55 for the trucks, and it reads the 55 sign and puts that as the posted speed limit. So it'll be interesting to understand how it's interpreting and reading the sign.
Another weird thing that we get in our area is when you do go through a school zone that's 25 miles an hour, basically, it'll pick up that speed and then stay that way forever. So for the next 10 minutes, you'll be running at that speed. The school zone's like 6 blocks away.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's going to be an interesting one that they have to teach, because there's so many different variations on that to run through on those school zones and the different signs.
We're actually seeing a very, very rarely, but occasionally, resume speed signs indicating.
Oh, really?
And yes, but
Good.
only occasionally. So maybe they're going to start to do it for all school zones.
I should, because I'm assuming everyone, this is how I do it. When I'm going through a school zone, I know I'm out of the school zone by looking at the other direction sign saying slow for school zone. Because I'm beta, I have the ability to report right to the engineering team. I should mention that one saying it's not recognizing that speed shift and going back up to the posted speed limit. I'll do that.
Or the alternative, you say next time you hit a stop sign or stoplight, it resets.
Resumes the posted speed limit. Yeah, that I saw previously.
Because that's easy. You're already
Yeah.
reading those.
Yeah.
Now, the other situation I was wondering about is right-hand turn, merge into traffic, either immediately or eventually.
I've got that one. I did that one actually last night at 1 o'clock in the morning. Of course, there's no traffic. So they're working through merge lanes. So we have a right turn. If you look at my video last night called Test Drive to Home Depot, there's a right turn it's a dedicated right turn that goes immediately into a merge lane that you have to merge into 2 lanes of traffic. Now, there was no traffic, but this build, it actually did that turn and entered that merge lane properly. It still isn't signaling to get out of the merge into the next lane. And of course, I didn't have any traffic to test to see if it would properly merge, but it seems to be.
Was it like a last minute merge?
Yes, it followed the curve of the merge and merged into traffic.
So it sounds like it currently is kind of what we're getting, where it's not merging because it wants to merge, but it's merging because the lane's just suddenly not there.
Yes. Now it does show on the UI because it has those arrows saying that you have to merge, and it is recognizing those arrows, so it's seeing that. But it doesn't seem, based on what I'm seeing the car show, it's not turning on the turn signal, telling me I know it must merge. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not a recognition.
Sorry, there was some feedback there. I just muted myself for a second. Don Scott asked the question saying, would the software not have the preloaded accident data to indicate a dangerous intersection and slow the car down and look for possible problems left and right? I think it is going to approach all intersections like that, anticipating. Like I said, it is definitely anticipating possible red light runners, not gunning it on a green light, watching the traffic flow, and if it sees anyone, it waits for them to see if they're going to run it. I haven't seen it go through any intersections where if it was a high accident, it would get itself in trouble, meaning that if the light goes green fresh, it does give it that 1 or 2 seconds to make sure that no one's still coming through the light before it proceeds. So it's not jumping the gun as humans do, where we anticipate a green and start going before we made sure no one's blowing through the red still. So it seems to not be putting itself in that position. most times I'm the one that's getting nervous because I've got a line of cars behind me feeling I've got to, go, but I'm trying to say, no, let the car do what it's trained to do and get me through this intersection safely. So the biggest variable I see with FSD beta is us making decisions based on our own habits. And for me personally, I always worry about what the person behind me is thinking. I shouldn't care. That person's not my problem. My car is my problem, and I got to drive for my vehicle. But in LA, for those that have been here, some of those guys on your butt get on your nerves a little bit. So it's just being aware of your own perception of what's happening and not rushing yourself through that intersection. And the car isn't. I can verify that. Anyone else have any questions? I was curious how this was going to go and what people were curious
yes,
about.
I have.
You've already been in?
She is,
Okay, just a minute. I got to find my mask.
What other things can I tell you guys that have been interesting? It is not doing any kind of different in auto park. This is just city street driving. It doesn't auto park the car or like anything like that yet, and that's not even in the notes of something that we should be even trying right now. It's just that point A to point B on the road already. It won't like pull out of my driveway or anything like that yet. I have to get out on the road and then engage it, and it goes.
Hey, James, can I step back a bit, go a bit more into, I understand that Tesla did a complete rewrite of their self-driving, and, everybody else, Waymos and everybody else are talking about we need 5G in order to transmit these massive amounts of data. And I heard earlier, maybe a couple of years ago, somebody had forecasted the self-driving cars at the time were going to generate 4 terabytes of data per day, 4 terabytes. And of course, you're transmitting this back and forth. So of course, you need some crazy 5G. It seems to me that Tesla has done something very smart to reduce that pipe size. And obviously, they're doing it today. They don't need it. So can you speak to what you think they did to make that efficient, that data efficiency?
I think it comes back down to what Elon's always said is that you can't rely or have a crutch to a truly fully self-driving system. The car's got to be able to use just its vision cameras and its local processing to figure out a situation. And once you crack that, you've got true autonomous driving. Because based on like just my experience on driving this beta, if it needed to check in, I don't think you could make a pipe big enough to send that data and get it back to you fast enough to make a decision at that situation. And just seeing like my round 2 180-degree video in a very simple situation with no traffic, how it machine learned how to approach that situation. And if you look closely, you'll notice my cell phone was not working at the time. So people are like, well, they must be coding in the background wildly as you're doing the drive. I'm like, no, the cell was broken actually, and it wasn't working. And the car was just making those decisions locally based on what it saw and what it previously saw on how to approach a situation. So really interesting how Tesla tried to think of it like Elon does with those physics first principles. Well, what are we going to do? Because if we have millions of cars, you can't have internet fast enough or a processing system fast enough to feed that data. What I'm really curious to see is, I don't know, this is just based on my experience, there's got to be some kind of low-level map tracking occurring based on what I'm seeing, because there's situations, and it actually just changed with this revision, where you're going down an interstate and it can see the oncoming traffic, right? But you can see those lane markings. But then you get a big concrete barrier pop up. So now you can't see nothing, but it's still drawing the lane markings on the other side of that barrier. So I'm like, well, it's not doing that on vision. So I'm wondering, what I honestly think is probably happening is you've got, I don't know what the current estimate is. I think there's like 900,000 FSD capable vehicles on the road. I can verify a lot of them are in LA. There's a lot of Teslas here. So even those cars that are just driving around without, haven't bought FSD, that don't have hardware 3 and their cameras are just live, it's gathering data And it must be doing something to help teach the computer anticipating situations. Kind of like what Don said there about high risk intersections. It must be drawing those maps and learning that machine learning on those situations. Because a lot of the time when you do bug reports, you have to, where are you when that issue happened? And so they're definitely somehow correlating position information with the issue. But I'm guessing that's during this training phase because they need to know what they're teaching it to do in that situation. And then it's going to interpolate out to how the car will then take a brand new situation and compare it to things it's seen before and act on that decision. Kind of like we do, right? You drive somewhere new, you base your decision on how to address that new intersection you've never seen in your life based on everything you've done previously. So I'm guessing that's kind of that logic that they've put into these FSD systems.
Heuristics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you kind of still see it around, Victoria. There are places where just using AP, where when the last Google Maps pass went by, there was a semi truck turning across the lane. So it looks like it's blocked.
Yeah.
And the car comes down the hill. This is on Lee Road. Every time it comes down the hill, while it's driving, it starts to slow down. No, stop. It's okay. You can keep going. It's not really there.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. Bug report that thing 4 times a month.
Well, that's good. Keep going. I mean, I'm sure it's being received and changed, but interesting.
Yeah.
With your being able to drive lines on the side of the road that you can't see, I get the impression that there's a very granular information in the system. For example, it'll say there's 4 lanes over there. It's going to tell you how many centimeters those lanes are, but it's going to say there's 4 over there, and they can draw that. We don't need to know exactly how much. Now, when you're talking about the 5G and using LiDAR, they don't need to download the information for the entire world onto your car. They don't have to do all that kind of stuff. They could just download, say, the next 10 kilometers around you, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have internet and you get outside that area, you're kind of, but with the way Tesla's doing it, it'll be able to handle it still. Just may not be able to draw it.
Yeah. And like when I did my northern trips, when I went to the Northwest Territories with the current reality most people have in their cars right now, it was always interesting. It could drive the road, but always what it had issues with was the speed limit. Because I mean, the recognition of speed signs is new on our cars. So it'll be really interesting when I can start free traveling again to see how it handles a road I know not many Teslas are taking, and how it anticipates those northern Alberta highways going up into the Northwest Territories, and how it handles those situations. Because previously it was using map data where someone marked on Google Maps or whatever system it's using that there was a construction zone, and it would still slow to 40 for that construction zone, even though it didn't exist anymore. So having that real world data to override old information, it has to have that capability, much like Glenn mentioned, and you were mentioning, Kevin, how it has to learn and adapt to what it sees versus what it thinks it's going to anticipate and make the right choice.
Yeah, we have a couple situations out here. One, they were building a bridge widening a bridge, and it would slow down to 40 kilometers an hour. That'd be going off for about a year. They've been doing that. And then lately they opened it up again. But the internal speed limits that it has downloaded off the internet are completely off.
Yeah.
Now with the street sign recognition, it's fixed that.
Yeah, kind of like what I saw where it was interesting, and it did this, and it did it correctly. It saw a speed sign for a construction zone. It was 35. It slowed to 40 because I had a 5 over the limit. And then it passed a 50 sign, saw the 50 sign and recognized it, but did not go over 35 because it saw the construction cones. So it made that choice because previously it would have just went up to 50 and started whipping around that construction way too fast. Now it's actually recognizing something that's overriding its understanding of what the speed is posted as to what it should safely be doing. So seeing stuff like that is really intriguing and interesting to see, and how it's interpreting what is the safer choice in the situation that it's passing. And then when the construction goes away at night, it's doing 50 through that spot. It doesn't slow to 35 thinking there's construction. So that's really interesting to see that it's doing that.
Mike has, Baker's got a question there on the chat. James, do you see that?
Yeah, he's asking, do the FSD vehicles have the ability to communicate with each other, as you suggested a few minutes ago? Do they warn other nearby vehicles of risky situations? All I'm aware of is that the cars are reporting if there's traffic. So like you guys see in your cars, the Teslas do communicate with each other in terms of backed up traffic. I am going to meet a friend who his name's Sofian. I don't, many of you might know him on Twitter. We're actually doing a similar chat like this tomorrow with the Tesla Owners Club of United Kingdom. So if you guys wanted to see that, that's going to be on YouTube. But we want to get together and try that. Like find a situation where there's an obstacle or put that obstacle. The car will see it and do the same thing for both cars. But find an issue like well, see, that's the thing. Everywhere it is, the car should see it and behave the same way. So it's difficult to test the theory. Is it telling the car behind you, or is the car just seeing the situation? So thanks, Jim. Great seeing you as well. So Jim Stana was just, I want to say bye. So I'd love to do some like proper testing, but I also don't know if Tesla will get cranky at me to posting stuff like that. It'd be interesting to do it quietly and just try it out for my own curiosity. But Tesla's fine. I'm not saying Tesla's cranky, but I very, very much appreciate and am humbled to be chosen for this. And I don't want to do anything that gives fuel to the fire to those that are trying to, break Tesla down. Because based on what I'm seeing and the heart of Tesla for safety, which we all see in their vehicle safety standards, their number one priority is driver safety and saving lives. And what I see is this has that capability to truly make a huge difference to everyone's day-to-day lives. That, it's a safe car with no emotions, no anger, no, excitement because you're listening to a good song and not paying attention on the road or whatever it is. The car will do what's safe every time. And that is such a huge advancement for transportation, that it's going to be a mind-blowing change when this is wide release. And who knows what they're going to do with hardware 4, which, Elon leaked is coming end of next year. Like, how much more can you do with this? It's going to be interesting to see.
Now, the funny thing about doing any of your testing that you're doing now is that in a week, it's going to be useless.
Oh yeah,
it could be fixed.
It's completely. And then rumor has it, I see on Twitter, Tesla's about to add a whole bunch of more beta testers. So that's going to change everything even quicker as more data comes into these neural networks. So it's going to be interesting to see not only how this revision, but the next hardware revision Tesla's working on, and then the next one after that. They're not going to stop. I mean, they're not going to stop innovating. Excuse me. So it's going to be interesting to see how those change over time. Sorry, there's a couple more questions here. Place and C Show PC that would be interested in discussing hosting. Okay, that's that. Okay, some private messages. Sorry, guys. Oh yeah, see, and the other thing I kept the parking. I've tried to do some of the parking that we all have in our cars where it backs in or parallel parks. It'd be interesting to see when they release those parking betas. Right now, I have the same revision as everyone else. It doesn't do anything differently. So I haven't been able to test any new parking capabilities. But that's the next piece of the puzzle once they figure out city driving is navigating a parking lot and parking in it. So right now, I don't try FSD beta in a complex parking situation. It's just too much happening at once, and I just hand drive it because there's too many variables. But the car is learning and watching as I'm doing it. So as it iterates, I'll probably get more comfortable with allowing it, but that's just my own personal choice at this point to just drive the car in very tight parking lot spaces and seeing how it handles that.
So I would imagine that the rewrite is only when the visualization has changed in the car to show the lines and all that kind of stuff. That's the only time I figure they may have made a change. Now, does that happen when you're not, that happens when you're not using the autopilot? And what kind of situations does that pop up in? Is it like just when you're on the
Sorry, I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Like the visualization changes with the lines and the reds and the lights and all that. Does that only appear when you're on the city streets, or does that appear in the parking lot as well?
It appears in the parking lots as well. It shows everything. So that visualization, as long as I have that FSD beta switch on in the car, the only time that goes away is when I enter a highway. As soon as I get on a highway, it flips to the original code and it shows the standard, beautiful, like prepared views of reality that you guys all see in your cars. That's the only time that flips off that UI. As soon as you go off an off ramp, and then anywhere on a city street, parking lots, everything, it's drawing that development mode visualization. And it's really interesting because I'm noticing, I don't have any on video for this, but I'm noticing when I first entered a parking lot 2 weeks ago, it was more chaotic. The visualization was very chaotic. You could see where it was trying to figure out a path, where it was drawing a median. It was positioning cars in reality. Now, when I go into a parking lot, it's definitely more structured. It's seeing those changes and anticipating, because there's so many different options for turning into various lanes. It's seeing those more fluidly now. So one of my choices is when I see that become more coherent on the visualization, I might trust it more to see how it's handling it, because you got cars backing up, you got shopping carts all over the place, you know, so it's nice to trust what it's doing before I enable it.
I'd like to see the visualization of you being in a parking lot of some sort, backing up. So
Sure,
you know
no,
how
I
it
could
does
do
the
that.
top-down view?
Yeah, I could do that, because actually it's really interesting. I can't really do this at my house because I don't want to give my house away on the internet, but when I'm backing into the garage, it visualizes it, which is really interesting because it draws my driveway. It draws the plants through little green dots in relation to the driveway. And then as I'm backing up my other cars in the garage, it has it in relative to me. And as I'm pulling in, it's showing all that information of the garage positioning as I pull in. Now, it's not showing walls or anything like that. It actually draws a wall as another boxed car, because so they got rid of, on our display, they got rid of those beautiful little car logos that everyone else has. It's just a box with a dot at the back of the back of the vehicle. So that is what renders for another vehicle now. And then the other thing I've noticed is with pedestrians, the size and proportions of the box represent the human. So adults are taller rectangles, kids are smaller rectangles, and a dog is a rectangle on its side. So it actually renders a dog in the proper box for the size of the animal. So that actually leads back to that deer question. It should be able to, because it can see a small dog, it should be able to see a deer as well and recognize, predict its path.
I want to see the moose.
No kidding, right? Yeah, big trucks, they're huge boxes. Yeah.
So
that's for sure.
you get into your car and go to Legoland, do you?
Yeah. Well, I think I got this in video. One of the got was, ironically enough, a semi passing with a bunch of Teslas on the back of it, and it rendered all the cars, right? Like it drew boxes for every car on the semi truck, and then a big box for the semi truck. So it was really interesting to see that it was actually interpreting those cars 2 levels up and on the display as it drove by. So
Jose's got a question on the chat there, James. Again, do you want to maybe read it? It looks a bit.
When it comes to self-parking, the car is able to do parallel parking or vertical parking. However, for vertical parking, it requires a space between 2 vehicles. That's correct. When will the software recognize a parking space? Okay, between a parked vehicle and a wall. I've started to see that in my car. I haven't enabled it. So I actually had a situation where I had a parked car. There was a spot with a parked car on my left and a median on the right. And it recognized it and it was going to allow me to enable it. And I did, but unfortunately I had a human walking that wasn't paying attention, and it caused the car to stop and ask me to take over because he was really close to my front bumper, and it just freaked the system out. But I'm starting to see that. I have not seen it recognize like a completely empty parking lot and you want to pick a spot. I haven't seen it say, I can take that spot. I mean, that's logical. It should be able to see that parking stall and say, I'm going to pull into that spot. So
does it show the lines for the parking stalls?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, yes, but on the new UI with the beta FSD, it was really interesting. When I was in the stall and I'm going to pull out, and it's like, you know, there's parking in front of you and behind you, it showed it as a lane. It showed it as multiple lanes of traffic on the UI. So it kind of drew it as a continuous line of flow. And of course, you can't enable beta, you can't even enable beta FSD when you're exiting a parking spot. It needs to get out onto some kind of straight stretch before you can enable it. So, I mean, that'll be an interesting thing when you can actually just turn on FSD in a parking spot and say, take me home. And it pulls out of the parking spot and then navigates the parking lot. But that's not its current capability.
That'll be called pub function.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And that'll definitely make the roads a safer place, for sure.
Take me drunk, I'm home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's exciting when you think about the fact that you may not even really need to own a car anymore if you can just summon one whenever you need it, just to get you from A to B, and then you always know one's available when you need it. It changes the whole dynamic of parking structures and parking at houses and green space, and it just changes everything.
Kind of gives us about a third or 2/3 more city.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah.
How did Tesla contact you when it came to doing the full self-driving beta?
I got an email so actually I could loop this into it. So everyone knows there is actually an official partnership with Tesla for the Tesla Owners Club of Vancouver Island that I started when I was living on Vancouver Island. Dave was so kind to take the president title. We have no official structure yet because when I set it up, we were under the Victoria EV Association because our goals are the same, the acceleration of adoption of a sustainable energy and transportation. So there is an official club, and through that I built relationships with Tesla as a club leader. And I'm on the board with the Tesla Owners Club of LA now too. So I found out through them that this was coming. They asked for my VIN and then I got the email. So what happens is if you're randomly selected, you get an email from the early access team, and it's basically like, we've selected you. Basically, you know exactly what you'd expect. If you'd like to take part in this, please let us know. But you have to read these terms and conditions, and it's about what you'd expect. You are in control of the vehicle all the time. This is a beta piece of software. Don't talk about it because it's beta, and Tesla definitely wants to get feedback on these systems, and they're not looking for public comment on it when it's in beta, like any piece of software from any company on earth. So it's really interesting process. And then, then you get the software update and you start doing beta testing and emailing them whatever you find or any concerns or issues and stuff like that. And with you in that respect.
Did they know you're a content creator?
Yes, so that's why we were selected. Because they know I'm on Twitter and saw my Twitter handle. That's one of the ways I was selected for this one. And we were one of the first batch. So the first person selected, I think, for content creation based on the patterns I saw online was John with Silicon Valley. I think he is one of the biggest Tesla Owner Club Twitter handles online. He has over 30,000 followers. So it makes sense that Tesla chose him as the true beta tester for social media. And he did that great content. If no one's seen it, watching his first video with Tesla Raj and how they were reacting to the car driving, it's hilarious. You should watch it because just them watching as the car navigated around a car and took a stop sign, it was just hilarious to watch. So I highly recommend it. And then from there, Tesla loved what that was and how it got people comfortable. And I think that's the key here is that interaction between machine and humans and getting us all comfortable with the idea of what it's doing and what it's capable of, and allowing us as humans to share that experience as it grows is actually very smart of Tesla, so that we can say, look, this is a system that started like this and is quickly evolving. And it's something that we are learning to trust as individuals that know how to drive a car successfully without, causing accidents or anything like that, and impart that information to the world so that people get accustomed to that idea. Because by far the biggest thing I get from people is I'll never trust that. I'll never trust a computer. It's too complex. It'll never happen. I'm like, you can't predict what this is going to be in the future. So let's see what they can do and what it's capable of and make a decision based on that information. So
yeah, enthusiasm is very catchy. And I think that if it's the video I'm thinking about, they were very enthusiastic. It was very behavior. Their emotion was, it's really catchy and striking and calms you down. Don is asking if the Teslas recognize each other on the road, and when following, do they communicate? I was wondering if they meant like dogs.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right now that, no, like I think Elon admitted that they're going to start rendering Teslas properly on the display. So if you see a red Model 3, you'll see a red Model 3 or an X or stuff like that. It's not doing that yet. I suspect, I'm hopeful that'll be exciting to see because there's so many Teslas on the roads here. It'll be really exciting to see white 3 and a red X and show it on the display. As far as I'm aware, there is absolutely no communication happening between Teslas at this point because that would be a crutch. The cars have to be able to make a decision at that point in time because one car in front of me sees a person walk across. By the time I get there, it's a different situation. That person's moved to a different position. So it has to be able to make that decision in real time. The only thing I would see, this is my own personal opinion, is if a car ahead of me sees a massive accident, I would like to know to go around. But in terms of like a pothole, I mean, that might be useful to send back to the one behind you, but it's also got to make a decision because at some point that pothole will be fixed. We don't want it always trying to avoid something that doesn't necessarily exist there all the time. So anticipation with the understanding of reality might be different.
Yeah, perhaps in the future, then cars, all EVs for that matter, like convoy together, very close proximity to make the roads more efficient and so on, and safer.
Yeah, and actually,
but that would come with presumably all cars, not just amongst Teslas. But.
Exactly, that's going to be something across fleets of vehicles. I mean,
yeah.
I was doing a road trip with 3 other cars, 2 Teslas and a Volt, and I was thinking, like, because I had my FSD beta, one was driving by hand in the Volt, and the other 2 had their FSDs. My car didn't. I was in the middle of the convoy, and my car didn't know I was following the car in front of me, and that's where that convoy mode would have been perfect because I could have said, "That car, follow him. I'm following that car," and it would have just paced him. My car kept trying to pass him. My car, because he was changing based on the environment. And then my car was like, well, let's get around this guy. I'm like, no, stay here. So my signal was on and off. And it was funny. People behind me said they could tell because my car would brake differently than the other 2 Teslas because I'm on a beta build. So it was, they were actually, mine did things differently.
Truckers sort of did that with the old CB radios. The guy out front had all the work and the other guys are following. And then they would trade spots for fuel efficiency, but also for the load of leading the pack.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to have that going down the road because the rest of you are all autonomous. In a sense, you're just locked into the signal in front of you.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Kind of like what happens with aviation. They actually make it so tighter together because of automation. Yeah. Cars could then be closer to each other if the lead car knows the other cars and communicates with them and says, have an obstacle, let's all start slowing down now, and they all know what's coming. Will definitely bring those efficiencies in where a car could tuck in behind another car, shrink in space, and anticipate changes. Yeah.
Yeah, we could even try this with autopilot right now heading up the island.
Yeah.
Teslas, we all agree we're going to be at a distance setting of 3. We're going to be at 5K over the speed limit, and if we go.
Well, actually, and on that note, Beta, one thing I've noticed when you're at a light currently with your revisions you're running, the car won't move until the car in front of it moves, right? So the light green, car moves, and then your car moves. In the beta, my car is anticipating that car moving. So it starts actually creeping forward before it moves so that it's an efficient acceleration behind that car. So it's removing that gap that forms that we see. And then you're like, oh no, go further ahead because this is inefficient. If you leave too big a gap, right? Because then you get that snake ripple effect in traffic. So the beta is actually anticipating that and trying to keep that nice fluid move off of stop traffic, which is really interesting to see.
It'd be interesting to see if that happens, like if it's based on it seeing the light turn green.
It is.
Can't see the light at all. If you can't see the light at all, would it then go revert back to, oh, the car head is moving now, the pilot car, and now I'm going to go.
I don't know.
Get behind a 5-ton truck.
Yeah, get a big truck in front of you. Yeah, that would be a way to do it, which shouldn't be hard around this area. So I'm trying to think. I did have a situation where it couldn't see the light, but I don't recall what it did. So I'll have to try that one out. Yeah. And also to see if you get 2 or 3 beta FSD cars, if all 3 of them together in a convoy anticipate, like you said, and go as a unit. That'd be interesting to see too.
What? There's got to be tons of those cars out there, right?
Well, there are, but they're not all running beta.
You guys gotta have a meetup, a COVID meetup.
Yeah, right. Exactly. A socially distant beta meetup. We're going to try that. There's 3 in our area. There's myself, Vincent down in near Disney, and then Sophian's just further up. Actually, in California, we could actually do a 5 convoy beta FSD, but unfortunately, we all have jobs and lives. It's difficult to coordinate something like that, and kids.
Oh, that's not important.
I know, right?
Yeah, what's up with all that?
Just
No, I
call
know,
in
man.
sick for a week.
The trouble is, I'm my own boss, and I'll never forgive myself. So,
Sort of going to be a
actually, I'm trying to take a week off.
yeah, going to kind of have a peloton of of EVs running down the road.
That's right.
Possibilities there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. One thing I've noticed with beta FSD, it's not important, but it's one thing of interest. It doesn't yield much. Like, so there's a couple situations where you're in traffic and someone's signaling to get in front of you. I'm noticing it doesn't want to leave space to let that person merge. So that's a lot of my disengagements is me being courteous and just allow that person to get in front of me and then re-engage it. So, but that I think is again training data. So it's
Earlier, you're mentioning people getting invited to the beta, a new batch of people. I actually got a message a couple hours ago saying that they're intending to do it tonight or tomorrow.
So they are saying no.
Oh, where did you hear that?
I'll see if I can bring it up again. It kind of just came through one of my feeds.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know Holmore's blog was saying that it's imminent, and I believe he talks to Elon quite a bit, so it could be through that. But it has to be imminent because the more data they get, the quicker they can iterate on this. So I'm sure another batch will be coming through soon.
Well, if they have so much to look at once with few people, that's okay. But maybe now at this point, they're having to look at you less individually. So now they can bring in more people.
Yeah,
exactly. Which would be interesting.
It would be, and it'll be really interesting when they bring that Dojo computer online in 2021, because I think that's going to be that key of that rapid growth acceleration on how quickly this adapts and learns with software updates and that information. Oh, and there was a question, I don't think I answered it. Someone asked if, like, how often I'm getting software updates and if anything is changing between software updates. I think so. I don't have any confirmation, but I'm pretty sure there's capabilities to change something between software. This is beta, the beta software. I'm noticing, like, if I do a bug report, it's being fixed before the software update. So something's being tweaked, like to fix that before another big push. So it's interesting to see that capability is happening.
Yeah, I know they can do a mini patch behind the scenes without you knowing.
Yeah, like for example, if you buy, say you didn't get FSD with the car and you buy it, if it doesn't have the code, it should, because the software is there. It's just a flip of a switch, right? It's 1 and 0 to flip on that capability. So they can push software code without an update in terms of like releasing a feature or something like that for some add-on or something like that, like the home link, adding that after the fact. So
yeah, well, that's done in person as well.
Yeah, someone has to show up and install the software.
Yeah, it's a physical thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but they can also send you a software update over cell signal as well, like they used to do. So
patches,
they can force it to happen.
Safety patches. Yeah, for sure.
Another question, James, if the
thanks, David.
HomeLink would open the gate as well as the garage door.
Yeah, as long as it has a radio frequency to detect it, and it's like a garage door button, it'll trigger it for sure.
Yeah, I can do that now, I think, can it?
Yeah.
I thought I read that somewhere in the manual way back, but anyway.
Yeah.
Isn't it like only works if you're coming towards the gate though?
Oh.
Now that's interesting, because I was having on my model, so my Model 3 would control my garage regardless of direction, pulling back into my garage. So if I was going out, it triggered it. With my, I had to be facing it to get it to respond, I noticed, until I upgraded my MCU from 1 to 2. When I upgraded to MCU 2 in my S, it would do it regardless of direction reliably. So that I found that interesting, because the HomeLink didn't get swapped, but the brain did of the MCU. So that definitely made some changes. And I'll say that anyone that has any interest in upgrading their MCU 1 to 2, highly recommended if you can do it. If the money isn't an object, if it isn't a problem, it is like a new car. I can't believe how much that changed the vehicle, just swapping out that MCU. And now they actually can bring FM, XM with it, so you don't lose the FM radio and stuff like that. So that's good. And I'll anticipate this question. I don't have any new information on the service center in Victoria. I know it's a high priority. I don't know where it's going to be or when it's going to be there, but it's encouraging to see the announcements about Surrey and Saskatchewan and all those areas getting service centers, and Victoria is on their list. So you guys tell me, you're the one driving over those city streets. You see construction somewhere, and keep an eye out for a Tesla sign. Let me know what you see.
Well, the problem with the Vancouver Tesla stuff is it's being promised for the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, the interesting thing is and that's where I think personally, that's why Tesla is always careful with information like this. They want to manage those expectations because it does take a lot of time. I mean, you got to find a space. I mean, if it's not zoned or not built, that takes permits and time. If you can find the perfect space that's already built and zoned, it definitely goes quicker. So it's just, and as you guys know, humans are only capable of so much bandwidth, and Tesla's doing a lot. And it's key. Service is extremely important. So don't get me wrong. I know that's something they absolutely have to get going and hit the ground running faster. So especially as they deliver more and more vehicles, but it's coming. Oh, sorry. That's
they've had a couple sites from what I know that they were intending to use, but issues like asbestos caused an issue.
Really?
Jose's asking about the, oh, sorry.
They're really picky, of course.
Yeah.
Jose's asked about the download of the AC U2, which is a hardware, I thought. But anyway, how much does it cost, etc.
Oh, you're talking about MCU2, Jose, I think. That's not a download. That's an actual physical swap of your main controller. This is only an SNX. I'm not talking about 3 or Y. So if you have an SNX I believe it was like late 2017, they switched the MCU from NVIDIA to Intel, and it made a big improvement in the capabilities of the processing of the vehicle and rendering and the graphics rendering. So MCU V2 is that Intel chipset, and it's an actual swap of that big 17-inch screen in your SNX. They actually have 2 options with it. You can get it without a new screen, which saves some money, or you can get it with the new touch screen as well. And they replaced that whole core center. And when I got it done, it took them about, I think it was 3.5 or 4 hours here in LA to get it swapped. And then they swapped the instrument cluster as well, the display behind the steering wheel. And when you get that, if you have version 2 plus, they'll do your hardware 3 retrofit at the same time. And then if you've got FSD, you get all those visualizations, you get the traffic light visualizations, everything like that. So that all comes with that upgrade.
Beauty. This is going good. I just pointing out we're like about 20 to 3 here. 3 o'clock's our usual appointed time, which is fine. We can keep on going here. People got questions. Don't be afraid to ask more. James, well, we got him on the line. He's a busy guy. So
I'm always happy to join you guys if I wanted to.
That's great, James. So yeah, anyone else got questions?
James, I picked up a Model Y the end of August. How do I know which chip do I have on board?
Model Y, every 3 and Y has Intel. There's no concern there. You're good. You have the latest MCU build with 3 and Y.
Yes, yet my HomeLink does not open the door on the way out, only does it on the way in.
Model Y, I don't have enough experience on that one. Is Anthony still here? My wife's here, Lisa, here.
Heather too.
So do you mind, can you ask Anthony if he's heard of anything with the Model Ys having directional issues with opening a garage door with HomeLink? Well, if he wants to. So we've made friends with a local mobile tech. His name's Anthony. He comes over all the time. He's in our little COVID bubble. So he's a friend, and he loves answering questions like this. But and it's great because I can just give him a VIN and he checks the logs for me. So that's actually quite nice. So, but one interesting tidbit: when you're on FSD beta, service can't look at your car because it's locked down and tied into a development mode. So it's only able to be unlocked if you roll it back out of beta, fix it, and then put it back. Go ahead, Glenn.
I'm wondering if Heather can answer that too, since she's got that beautiful garage and her Model Y now.
Yes, Heather,
Yeah,
that'd be a good.
I always park my car in the garage facing forward, so I don't know if that makes a difference. But I always open the garage door before I go out because I've got to get the dog in the car or whatever else, and it's really close to the back of the car. So I don't even really haven't really tried it, and my garage is so tight I can't back in because I'm in a tight corner where I back in because I'm the smaller car, of course. So yeah, I haven't really tried it, but I'll try it one of these times when I've got the garage to myself. I'll back in and see if it opens up when I go to get out.
Interesting.
I'll test it out on Monday.
Cool.
Or-
Don Scott,
Yeah.
Scott, do you want to ask your question, please?
I see that, Don. You're asking, is there much demand for the Tesla service? Well, it depends. It depends on the area and what's going on. Sorry, hold on a second.
We have an answer.
What do you say?
He says sometimes. So he said that he had a guy who had a Model Y and it wasn't working as well. So he recommends that when you do program it, that the car is always facing into the garage,
Okay.
like from outside.
Yeah.
And then, well, that was the only problem. After that, it was okay.
Okay.
But he says like it's normal
For the direction to affect
For
the
the
signal. Yeah. So, I mean, the gentleman that asked me about their Model Y, try reprogramming it with it facing the vehicle, facing the garage, and see if that makes any difference for you when you're facing away from it. You never know, that could play a factor. But to answer, oh, sorry, go ahead, Heather.
The other thing is when my car is in the garage, wherever it is, it's right below the signal for the opener. So it's not as like when you're coming into the garage, you're coming towards it. Whereas when you're in there already, you're right underneath it. And I think that makes a big difference. If I had twice as long a garage, it might make a difference. I might be able to, you know, have it pointing at the signal better.
Yeah, that's interesting. To answer
Might
Don.
be GPS.
Yeah, interesting. The demand for service, yeah, it varies. Most people that get a Tesla don't have a big demand for service. I can say that for sure. We have a Model 3 SR Plus that my mother-in-law and father-in-law have up in Hay River. It hasn't seen service since it got picked up over a year ago. So it hasn't needed a single service call. Some people need some more depending on issues, or even if it's just personal pickiness about something and they go into service quite a bit. So it's actually what I'm saying is MCU. So that's main control unit. It's on a Model S and X. The main control unit is behind and part of that 17-inch center screen. So that is what an MCU is. And that's what can be swapped in the older cars. If you have a newer S or X produced from about 2018 later, you already have it, nothing to worry about. If you have a 3 or Y, you've got the latest, greatest hardware on all those cars. So those are excellent. You don't need to worry about anything like this to worry about upgrading that MCU. Little tidbit, your MCU on a Model 3 and Y is actually part of the FSD computer. They're tied together under the glove box. In Model S and X, the MCU is in the center screen and the FSD computer or hardware 3 computer is in the glove box. Another tidbit, 3 and Y is liquid cooled, S and X is air cooled FSD computers. I found so, yeah. Those little tidbits I don't think of, so I'm sharing them as they pop into my mind that I've learned along the way. Another little tidbit. If you own an S and X and it's probably about 2019, 2018, supercharging is great for long distance travel. It is not meant for day-to-day travel. So your ideal way to charge is at home on S and X earlier models. But if you have a 3 or Y, it's not as critical, but always it's more convenient to charge at home. So for sure do that. But supercharging is like anything, when you're ramming high power into it, you're definitely changing that chemistry of the battery pack. It's not as big a deal on a 3 and a Y, but S and X, definitely consider it when you're traveling. As someone who's driven a lot of miles and I've put my battery through its paces, it's still doing great. I mean, I've done almost 100,000 miles on my S. I found out I've done 23,000 kilowatt hours of supercharging. So that's a lot of supercharging. And when it was new, I had about 100 kilowatt hours. I think I'm sitting now at 93 kilowatt hours. And I've started to see that reduction in supercharging speed, which is just because I've done over 4 years of miles and energy consumption. So that's why I'm mentioning this as kind of a public service announcement on SNX. Just think about that. I mean, drive your car, enjoy your vehicle, go on road trips. It reduces slightly. It's not a lot. I think it's about a 13% drop for me right now, which isn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it is a change. And it's not as, you won't see that in the 3 and the Y. So we have a 3, I'm sitting at 62,000 miles. I've seen no reduction in supercharging. And I don't know how much I've charged on that one yet. I have to check, but I don't think it's a number that is as big a deal as when you're with the original SRX.
We have a taxi company out in Kelowna, Current
Yeah.
Taxi, and he's running Model 3s and he supercharges constantly and he's not getting a reduction.
Exactly. So those 3 and Ys, those things are road trip machines for sure. And Tesla's goal is to accelerate supercharging. They aren't intentionally trying to slow anyone down. So, I mean, they want to get rid of that and they want everyone doing quick supercharges and continuing on their way. So, and I know Tesla's mission is to make sure that happens. So their goal. Yeah, I mean, not much else I can tell you that I can think of. What else can I tell you guys that I take for granted I'm not thinking of right now? Tweeting Elon, that is one of the best ways to feedback, as you guys all know. I mean, it's a shot in the dark, but it's better than nothing in a lot of scheme of things. So, I mean, yeah, if you guys have supercharging locations, there's a website you can go to. I know Tesla's, they're like Fort Knox with information, okay? So I have no idea where superchargers are coming, but I do know they are very aware of Canada and especially BC with EVs. So this is me talking. I don't have any insider information. I know they're aware. I know they're working on new locations. Based on patterns, they're going to follow the route that people want. So I'd say give it a year or two, and like anything with Tesla, it'll all be different and it'll be expanded and better is today, which is already amazing. So excuse me, guys. So yeah, keep your eyes open. Send in feedback via
Thanks,
the
Evan.
website. Yeah.
Glenn.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, James. So Tesla Owner Club LA.
Yep.
You guys do Zoom chats?
Once in a while, we actually have one tomorrow morning from 12 to 11. We're doing a Zoom chat, and then they're not as active, and I'm working on that as well. So, but why do you ask, Glenn?
Well, I'd love to sit in on one.
Sure. I mean, we're having a little one tomorrow. If you go to teslaclubla.com, you're supposed to have an account, and they're just moving to a paid membership for insurance costs here in the US, but you could do a 6-month free trial and then just register for tomorrow's event, which is a Zoom meeting for sure. Yeah.
Tesla Club LA, right?
teslaclubla.com. Yeah.
Just a quick one to jump in here. A friend of mine took delivery of a Tesla Model 3 yesterday. And just out of curiosity, he asked the person that was helping with the delivery, explaining the car, so how many cars are you going to sell today? She says, oh, we'll deliver 45 cars today, 45 cars on Saturday, and maybe a little bit more on Sunday.
Wow.
That's what's happening in Vancouver right now with Tesla deliveries. It's huge.
That's pre-end of quarter.
Oh, yeah. The end of quarter is December. That's when they go nuts.
That's when there's hundreds of cars a day. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have a friend a few blocks away who just got a new Model Y, and he said they picked up 140 that day, and the day before it was 170.
Whoa!
Where was this?
In Vancouver.
In Vancouver, yeah.
And he's probably had the car now for a month or so, I think. I'm not sure how long.
Oh, that would have been the end of quarter in October. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be end of September, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, September. Thank you, Bruce.
Why is there a big push for people buying them in the end of quarter?
Okay, let me just jump in here. What happens with Tesla is October the 5th is when they started building the new Model 3s. So Tesla really didn't have any cars to deliver for more or less the month of October. And the cars just started arriving from Fremont, beginning of November. So now they've got cars. They've had physically nothing on the ground.
Yeah.
And the other thing they do at the beginning of October is they build cars for Europe.
Yeah.
Because they have to put them on a boat for about 3 to 4 weeks. So there's nothing to deliver. So all of a sudden there's cars for North America being built in great quantities. And everybody's on the phone right now. Hey, you wanted to buy a Model 3? Well, the Model 3 is available now with an opening trunk, a heat pump, a new redesigned interior, and you get a USB stick in the glove compartment for your full self-driving or for your dash cam. Amazing cars.
They are.
And what this means to, EV associations and the EV community across British Columbia is that Tesla is pushing out cars as fast as they can. They've built the capability to do so, battery-wise, body-wise, and everything else. They're shipping them out the door as fast as they can. Even if you want another car, and there's plenty of other great EVs out there, those manufacturers haven't put in the time and effort to be able to push cars out at that rate. So what that means is all of our associations and our entire community is getting more and more lopsided to test as we go forward.
Yeah.
Too bad, but it is a thing.
Yeah, it's feeding the demand, so that's what's happening. Yeah.
Well, the person that bought the Tesla yesterday, interestingly enough, went down to look at another car. He looked at a Hyundai Ioniq, and while he was test driving the Hyundai Ioniq, he drove that to Tesla just to have a test drive, because I said to him, don't buy anything before you've gone and done the test drive. So he went and he did the test drive and finished the test drive with a Tesla, or he picked up the Tesla, started the test drive, phoned his wife and said, hey, do you want to go for a ride? And she said, no, not interested. So he phoned his 94-year-old mother, and his mother said, sure, I'll go for a ride with you in the Tesla. So they went for the ride in the Tesla, and they dropped the Tesla back at Tesla. They looked at each other, and she said to him, you should buy this car. This is 94-year-old mother. Said, you should buy this car. And he said, yep, you're right. I'm going to buy this car. So he went and returned the Ioniq back to the dealer and said, well, I have to think about it. Thank you very much for the chance to drive the Hyundai.
Wow.
But it's a night and day difference. There's no question about it.
There's night and day, yeah.
And
it all comes down to that charging network too.
Well, there's that, but then there's also people keep on saying, well, we've got to wait till EVs get to price parity. And I'll say that where Tesla specifically, where they put their cars in the market, they are already at price parity for their competition. So you look at the Model 3 from the SR Plus up to the Performance, that's covering the whole range of the BMW 3 to 4 series.
Yep.
It's already competing at that price mark. Same with the Y, it's competing at its small premium price mark in the X and the S. As Tesla comes down market, more and more of those different niches in the market are going to be met at price parity. Yeah. And so just, when you are talking to people, oh, it'll be great when it gets down to price parity, already there.
Yeah. Well, I was shocked. I went and checked. You can lease a Model Y here for $499 a month. $499 a month US. Drive it off the lot, Model Y.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's absolutely
crazy. No gas.
Yeah. I don't think you can get a Leaf for that.
Can we buy these off-lease ones in Canada like we can the off-lease Leafs?
No, you can't buy the lease out here. That's one of the tricks. Yeah, it's owned by Tesla at the end of it for their robo-taxi fleet.
Oh, that's why they're doing it. So they're subsidizing the robo-taxi fleet.
Yep. It's very clever, actually.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, $499 for yeah, that's amazing. I'm just looking at the website while I'm talking to you guys. I was curious, what's a 3? Oh, and did you all see the battery of the Model 3 also increased to 83 kilowatt hours, and the range got a little bump with the new build too?
Yeah, on the long range, yeah.
Yeah, on the long range. Whoa, you can get a Model 3 SR Plus for $371 a month. Long range 472.
That's pretty cool. Well, folks, this has been great. We got a few minutes left till 3 o'clock, and I suggest that we carry on this little gab fest as long as you folks would like to stay and Jim doesn't push the leave button. Jim Henshaw, I'd like to give him some credit for
Yes.
his button pushing today as usual. And he's also responsible for our newsletter and all those updates, and often manages things like volunteer lists for light parade events. So thanks, Jim, for
Thank you,
that.
Jim.
And I'll just make this a formal cutoff, James, not to stop the conversation, but simply to thank you once again. And I noticed Lisa even popped in there with some important research for us in the background. That's awesome.
That's right.
Thank you, Lisa. But your knowledge and willingness to share, James, is unmatchable in the world of, well, in general, let alone EVs. And I think that for me, it just helps re-inject all the enthusiasm that I feel for the whole realm and where that's moving. So I'd like to thank you again on behalf of everyone for what you do.
I want to thank all you guys as well. I mean, it's always inspiring to be in these conversations and see what you guys are up to. And I'm so proud of what you guys are doing up there. And I miss you guys all so much.
Oh,
time. I think about you every guy, all of you every day. And I miss
right on
getting together for coffee and doing the trips. And and it's going to be something with me for the rest of my life. And the second, like I said, the second it's safe for me to get up there, I'll be coming for a visit for sure.
Right on. Well, I think the same goes the other way. You might have to get a new house with more guest rooms, because I don't think 1 or 2 guest rooms is enough anymore.
No kidding. We got a house with a guest room, and then COVID happened. It's like,
we're just going to put your house address into the autonomous drive, full self-driving button, and we're just going to just party all the way down. There'll be like a string of about 50 of us.
Exactly. We'll make sure everyone's paced out for supercharging and sleeping.
Yeah, right on. So carry on, folks. Don't let me stop. The meeting is formally over at this point, but last time we chatted for a little bit after, and like I say, at some point, Jim's got to go to bed because, I think it's getting up to his bedtime.